Hey guys, welcome to the channel. It's Jack with Stronghold Strength and Conditioning. And today, we're talking about how to speed up your recovery time so you can bring your A game. But before we get into that, make sure you take a moment and hit that subscribe button so you don't miss out on future content like this. Ready? Let's get into it. Alright guys, how to speed up your recovery time so that you can bring your A game more consistently. That's what we're talking about today. And personally, it's my belief that the best defense is going to be a very good offense with this one. We're looking at 4 things that you can do consistently throughout your lifestyle that will help you recover faster overall when it comes down to it in those tough moments where you're working out with higher intensity or training with higher intensity overall. So let's go ahead and dive into them. Number 1, the very first thing we want to look at is your nutrition overall. Are you providing your body the appropriate macronutrients and the essential vitamins and minerals that it needs to be doing its job correctly? So mainly, the biggest one we're going to look at first is actually your hydration level. Most of us walk around about 2 to 3% dehydrated, which happens to be where we see a lot of decreases in athletic performance overall. So if we're already walking around dehydrated and we're getting further dehydrated as we exercise, we're not only minimizing and limiting our performance to begin with, we're only getting back to about what our baseline is when we do try and rehydrate post-workout. So that's going to slow things down. Water makes up about 60% of our bodies. So if we're lacking about 2% of that, that's actually a pretty big component of our bodies in weight. And what we really need to pay attention to here is that water is the solvent that all our metabolic processes take place in. So if we're lacking our water, we are slowing down our metabolic processes and all those things that are going to help you function to recover and perform during your next workout. So it needs to be something that we consistently do. I recommend about 3 liters of water on average per day. So that would be about 3 25-ounce bottles. Now I don't recommend that you just go out and start drinking that much today. It's going to feel like a lot, but you will have to build up to that if you're not already doing it. Now, if you live in more warm conditions where you're sweating a little bit more or you work out, you might actually want to add another liter of water that day once you get to it. But if you're able to consistently get about 3 liters of water a day, we usually get about 1 liter of water from our food. That's going to help us stay hydrated to the fullest extent where our bodies can really perform at their highest level during exercise and after exercise when they're trying to recover. Now let's talk about the macronutrients. The very first one we want to pay attention to is the protein content that you're getting in your diet. And I usually recommend, just as a good average, about 1 gram per pound of lean body mass. Now that might vary a little bit depending on what activity or what type of athlete you are, but I figure that's a pretty good average range in general. Now our protein content's obviously very important because it's helping to not only repair the tissues, but we even have protein content down in our bones. Protein gets broken down into amino acids, and our amino acids are what's getting used throughout our body. We want to make sure that we have a varied amino acid profile, but for muscle protein synthesis specifically, we want to make sure that we do have leucine, the amino acid leucine, in our diet, so it can help us actually synthesize that protein and build muscle, or at least maintain the muscle that we have. Now, a key is, if I don't have the other essential amino acids, then I'm still going to be lacking and my body can't put together those chains. So I do need to eat a varied diet of amino acids, whether that's from plant-based proteins or from animal-based proteins, either way. Once again, I recommend that you just split it up and get it through multiple different sources of both animal and plant, or if you're doing all plant, making sure that you have a good supplement that can fulfill those dietary needs there. Carbohydrates. Here's what I'll say about them. They're going to vary based off of the type of athlete you are and the type of performance that you're trying to do. So we want to make sure that we're getting the appropriate amount of carbohydrates for the overall goal or the athletic event that we're performing in, and making sure that we're getting a substantial amount to help improve and optimize that performance overall on a regular basis. Now, I'm not going to go ahead and throw those numbers out here right now because there's quite a few that we could look at. But if you do want those, take a moment and stop down the description down below and make sure you grab Recalibrate, my free nutrition guideline booklet on how to optimize human mobility and performance. Fats. We want to make sure that our fats come from a varied diet, basically, once again, similar to the proteins. So we want some poly, we want mono, and we want saturated fats in there. But it should be about a third of our fat from each type. Fats help create the cell walls in our bodies. So we want to make sure that we're giving ourselves the opportunity to regenerate those cells well. One specific thing we want to look at is actually our omega-3 to omega-6 ratio. Omega-3s and omega-6s actually help directly affect our inflammatory response in our body. Omega-3 limiting and bringing down that inflammatory response, and omega-6 actually increasing that inflammatory response. Now, it may sound like a bad thing, but those things actually keep our body in balance, and we do need those two different triggers. The problem is that most of the diets in the United States today are actually high in omega-6. So we want to make sure that we bring that ratio back into balance by increasing our omega-3 intake. Now, I generally recommend about anywhere from 3,000 to 9,000 milligrams of omega-3 per day. That's going to help keep a low level of inflammation through your body in general overall and bring things back into balance. This is something that's just generally going to help your body heal a lot faster overall. All right, number 2, mobility training. If you're not doing some form of mobility training, you're really fighting your own body in the long run. The reality is, in our daily movements and in our day-to-day, we really practice poor mechanics overall in most cases, or we have a lot of opportunities to practice poor mechanics, which usually get exercised. If you have no form of mobility training in your current program, then there's a good chance that you're training under an already stressed body because of the shape and the load that's being placed on it overall. We want to make sure that there are a few things we really look at when we're doing our mobility training. We want to make sure that our joint mechanics are going properly. So we're moving in a way that our joints are working smoothly and they're not taking excess pressure from overtension in the tissues that surround it. That in itself allows us more freedom to move, and it actually helps our tissues relax a little bit better in a way that they do not have to hold tight to create faux stabilities in our bodies. There's a greater balance overall in our bodies. The second thing we want to look at with mobility is the soft tissues themselves. Are soft tissues sliding and functioning in the way that they should? Fascia is located throughout our body, and it almost acts as a lubricant for all of our tissues to glide and slide over one another. However, if we're doing similar movements over and over, repetitive movements, there's a good chance that there's some fascial adhesions that are restricting some of your movement overall. Mobility training is a great way to hunt out those fascial adhesions and let those soft tissues restore and glide over one another better once again. Self-myofascial release has also shown very helpful in recovery time overall. So that massaging effect helps clear out some of those inflammation markers and bring in new blood flow to those tissues, allowing you to repair and recover a lot faster. Any type of massaging effect is really going to be beneficial in that sense. So we want to make sure that we are moving well to begin with, good movement patterns, that tissues are functioning well, and that joints are functioning well to overall help ourselves in the long run. All right, number 3, activation of the parasympathetic nervous system. Now this is important in a couple senses here. So immediately following your workout, we want to make sure that we're doing an activity that actually helps activate our parasympathetic nervous system and gives us a jump start on the actual recovery process in our body overall. So this might be something like diaphragmatic breathing or just 90-90 breathing, where your feet are up and you're relaxed in a laying position, letting yourself breathe through the diaphragm, focusing on bringing the heart rate down. This is going to help speed up the recovery process to begin with, because we take less time to actually get to that state, and our bodies can start to do the repair process that's necessary. We also want to make sure that we're overall keeping a good balance of sympathetic nervous system to parasympathetic nervous system throughout our days. So if we're chronically stressed and under pressure on a day-to-day basis outside of our exercise, and then we add stress in through exercise, we're going to be really overloading that sympathetic nervous system. So we really want to make sure that we bring that back into balance, keeping our stress levels balanced out with good activity of the parasympathetic nervous system. And this might be something like a yoga practice. You could use the mobility practice that we just talked about as a way to activate that as well through relaxation and deep breathing while you're practicing those mobilities even. So there's multiple ways that you can get into this parasympathetic nervous system, but just know that it's all about bringing down the heart rate and getting your body to relax as much as possible. And last but not least, number 4, sleep quantity and or quality. So we want to make sure that you're getting either the proper amount of sleep, which is somewhere in that 6 to 8 hour range, or you're at least optimizing the sleep that you're getting if you're not able to maximize the time that you're actually getting. So we want to do some things that really set us up for good sleep quality overall to help us in recovery. Sleep is when we are recovering. That is when our bodies are repairing itself. So if we're not able to get the amount of sleep, we need to be making sure that we are at least getting high quality sleep to recover at a faster rate. So here are some things that you can actually do to help improve your sleep quality overall, if not the quantity. First of all, if you're not getting the quantity that you need because you're sitting up watching TV or looking at your phone at some stupid article, put the phone down, turn the TV off, get to bed sooner overall. You don't need to be watching that junk. It's not helping your performance. You're really not learning anything, and you're just kind of wasting time. Let's be honest. In order to improve your sleep quality, we want to make sure that you have some type of pre-bed routine in place. This is what's triggering your body to understand that it's time to go to bed and you're going to be going to bed soon. So we might be reading, but read a book. Don't read off your phone. We want to make sure we're getting away from that blue light as much as possible, even if it's in the low dim mode. I don't care about that. Get the phone away from you, turn off your brain, do something that actually helps you start to wind down. You might even throw your mobility routine in there where you're doing some of your self-myofascial release prior to bedtime. This would be a nice way to actually return blood flow. This is almost like giving yourself a massage right before you're going to bed, getting yourself to wind down and relax those muscle tissues so that once you get into bed, you're ready to actually conk out. Once you're in bed, we want to make sure that there's not a lot of light pollution in your room. So we want to make sure that it is a nice dark room for you to be sleeping in. We want to make sure there's not a lot of noise pollution. So you might have to use some type of white noise to actually drown out some of the exterior noises that you might have around your apartment or home when you're sleeping. And we also want to make sure that the room is at a good temperature. It's been shown that we sleep best in a range in the mid-60s about. So if you're keeping your room at about 65 degrees, that's probably a good temperature for you to be sleeping at. All right, there you guys have it. My recipe for success. How to speed up your recovery so you can bring your A game more consistently. If you guys like this video, make sure you give me that fat thumbs up or share it with a friend at least so that they can also recover quicker. You know they need to. Just get it their way. Leave a comment below letting me know something that you've been trying to help with your recovery overall. Or if you have any other questions that you might have for me, I'd be happy to answer those for you. And if you haven't already, make sure you take a moment and hit that subscribe button so you don't miss out on future content like this. If you guys want something specifically tailored to you, make sure you take a moment to stop by the website, fill out that coaching application, or just grab that free hour and we'll have you headed in the right direction in no time. I want to thank you guys for watching today. We'll see you next time.